You are listening to Rouge Radio, a proud member of the Canadian Football Podcast Network.
It's time to get the point as Rouge Radio is ready to kick off.
Ready!
The best football talk with the best in the business.
So what is the cost? You have 2 first-round picks this year because the Argos are dumb enough to trade for Drew Willie.
A few rookies.
We go directly to the on-field product. We welcome to the show the 20th overall pick in this past Sunday's CFL draft, DeAndre Wright of the Alouettes. DeAndre, welcome to the show.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for having me.
And the occasional Hall of Famer.
Please welcome Doug Brown, who is one of the members of the current class of 2016 in the CFL Hall of Fame. Doug, thanks for joining us today.
Oh, thank you guys for the kind words and for having me on the program.
Rouge Radio is on the air. Here's your hosts, Robert Dalton and Tony Allen.
So, Tony, you ever have those people that message you or tweet you or text you like, hey, great show, and then it turns out that they never listen?
I don't know if I've ever had that, but I'm assuming there's a story here.
Well, it happened. It's like some guy that sent me a message. Hey, love the podcast. It's like, okay, great. It's like, yeah, I'll be listening going forward. And it was like, okay. Then he said something that kind of like, well, I don't think we talked about that. And then it just kind of like, and then it brought back memories. I think back in the day, I think when you first jumped on the crew of back in the Swagger and Stagger show, someone sent an email saying, "Oh, guys, I love your show. Keep up the good work." And just the way that he worded the email, I was like, "This sounds shady," and I'm walking into some kind of joke. So I called him. I was like, "What do you think? What did you think about my take on this?" And they're like, "Oh, it was great." It's like, okay, I didn't even talk about that. All right, F off right there. It's the Rouge Radio Podcast, episode 355, powered by the Canadian Football Podcast Network. My name is Robert Dalton, and joining me is Tony Allen. And I was going to make a statement about where we are. That's also another thing, or someone wanted to join the live broadcast and come into the Rouge Radio studio. And that's another thing that kind of made me think about that, because it's like if you listen to the show, you know that Tony and I aren't in the same studio, right? So you're basically just watching me talk to a microphone. It's essentially what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so we got a great show. We've got our 3 down hot takes. Obviously, we're going to be talking about some hurt feelings, some people possibly adding themselves to the 6-game IR because of those feelings. We're going to be jumping into the previews of Week 11. Of course, we got our Magnificent Bastard and our Mystery Decks. Tony, how did you spend this past week?
I started my week off with a visit from my mom, so I was doing a lot of hosting, and actually you would think I'd get to relax because kind of grandma and the kids would get to play together, but no, just kind of taking my mom around and spending time with her, but I will never ever complain about that. I got some bingo in, which is my yearly bingo night, so I do enjoy that with my mom one-on-one there. So that was basically my time, and then back to work, and Monday till today, just work and look after the kids.
I remember we went out to during my holidays. I took the family. We went to bingo out in the lake, and that's, man, those people are aggressive. Man, they do. If there's someone that has been there less than a month and they win bingo, man, they do not take kindly. It's like Mean Girls, but old.
Yeah, the regulars do not like when someone new to the bingo hall wins. That's their money. Oh, but here is my bingo story, worst case scenario story. I needed I-23 and B4 to get the bingo on the bonanza pot at the end. And anyone that knows bingo knows the bonanza probably, and anyone that doesn't, it doesn't matter because you won't understand that part anyways. But it's a big pot. And I-23 came up, so I dotted it. And mind you, this happens in a fraction of a second. So usually, if you've never been to bingo, you see the number in the queue screen, but that's not in play until they officially call it. So I-23 came up, I daub it, I'm like, oh, I have one left. And as he pulls the ball out, in this fraction of a second, he pulls the ball out, ball number whatever comes up behind it, and it's B4. And I turn around and I'm like, holy shit, Mom, I'm going to get bingo. and he announces I-23, and the lady behind me yells bingo.
And
my grand prize is sitting in the queue window waiting to call B4. I was one number short. The lady behind me, oh my gosh, I was legitimately crushed because my like $800 was sitting in that queue window and some lady won it before me.
And it's at that point where you just turn around and it's like WWE style. You take your folded chair and then hammer over the head. No, I'm not advocating violence against the women. That's a joke. We'll scrap that. Let's get on to our 3-down hot takes.
Bethel Thompson at his 30, under pressure, gets it away into the end zone. Touchdown, Argos. Armandi Edwards. What a finish. What a comeback. And Toronto takes the lead with 1 second to go in the clock.
The Toronto Argonauts, fresh off a narrow victory against the BC Lions, have pulled together a streak of 2 in a row that coincides with the emergence of McLeod Bethel Thompson. Never trust a guy with 3 first names. And so I guess the question is, are the Toronto Argonauts legit contenders, or did they just happen to have a lucky streak and they faced an Ottawa Redblacks team who didn't have any film, and the BC Lions team who proved that maybe they're not just there yet?
Yeah, it's funny. I texted you this as a possible hot take, and honestly, in the time I've had to think about it, I still don't know. Like he's a slow starter. We'll establish that he's being a slow starter, but his second halves are phenomenal. But I mean, for all intents and purposes, I mean, God forbid we even imply that Mike Riley is anything other than infallible when it comes to football. Oh my gosh, I'm going to say it. He might start football games slow. Oh my God. Start the bombardment of hate mail. Oh my God. How could I say that Mike Riley doesn't do everything perfect 100% of the time? But if you can't pick up on it, this is becoming my beef of 2018, how Mike Riley physically cannot do anything wrong, even if he does something wrong. Like, let's praise him nonstop. But I'm just saying, for argument's sake, he starts games slowly. Bethel Thompson seems to be doing the same, but then he seems to have another gear for the second half. The Argonauts have another gear for the second half. And honestly, they could have put that game away quite comfortably, but, you know, a little bit of the dropsies, not getting Argos bounces until the very end when Bell gets a chance to make up for a turnover. It's really hard to put my finger on whether or not this is a contending team or a pretending team right now, because as much as they've wowed us these last couple of weeks with great comebacks and strong second halves, I really don't know if I'm ready to put any substantial amount of money on them. If our third hot take from the night comes to fruition, then maybe I'll start taking the Toronto Argonauts a little bit more serious. But right now, I don't think I can put them in the contender category quite yet.
Keep in mind that the Toronto Argonauts are in the East, right? So, I mean, what's been the MO for the last few years? That all you have to do is finish first in the East, and that's an automatic trip to the Grey Cup. We saw it with Ottawa the year before. We saw it with Toronto last year. So all it takes is that magical clinching the first. Now, Ottawa seems to be playing some really good football. Hamilton, I had them finishing first in our preseason rankings. I'm not too sure where I see them at this point. Toronto, obviously better than Montreal, but now they're playing some really decent football, and they're getting better quarterbacking than we ever expected. Even better than what we expected with James Franklin when he was playing for those few games. I'm with you right now. It's so unbelievably hard for a guy even at his age to come in with no video film on him and to come in and keep that consistency. Because let's be honest, out of 8 quarters, about 4 of them have been really consistent level. Not saying that they don't have a bad team surrounding them, because they actually do have a decent team. But let's wait until we get more of a consistency as far as the opponents go. I mean, this week, it's against Montreal. but then you've got the back-to-back against Hamilton. I believe Saskatchewan the week after that. So let's not pretend. Let's don't count our chickens before they hatch, right? I think that's the best. I think that's the proper saying here. I'm with you on that one. I think right now they're not pretenders, but it's going to take a couple of weeks before I label them true contenders, even in the East Division. And we get on to our second down hot take.
The specific question definitely wasn't posed to me. I definitely misinterpreted one. I think it was more about physically how I was, and I was thinking more about the booing that happened. So in that instance, I did interpret a question wrong, but at the same time, what I said is what I said, and it's crazy. I feel like it's been completely blown out of proportion for the amount of coverage it's gotten or whatever. I mean. I had people from all around the league, organization, teammates, everyone messaging me. I think that everyone thought that.
Now, this one, it's only happened twice this year, and quite frankly, didn't think it was really that much of a hot take until Twitter took the reins. So we all remember Vernon Adams Jr. when Montreal acquired Johnny Manziel. He didn't play bad. He didn't play good. But then everybody started chanting, "We want Johnny. We want Johnny." Well, he took to Twitter saying, "Hey, I understand this is a business. However, I felt it was really disrespectful." Now I'm paraphrasing. I don't have the tweet in front of me or the comments, but basically called the Alouette fans, disrespectful because he didn't play well or didn't play as good as they expected, and he didn't play bad. It was the game was actually still within reach. There was no reason for you to pull him. And then at that point, we found out what happened with Johnny Football. Fast forward a couple of weeks later, Matt Nichols gets pulled because of an injury. Now he has to take out the mandatory 3 plays out before he goes back in. Chris Strebler comes in, 3 for 4, I believe, for like 20 or 30 yards. Driving the field quite nice, which is something that Matt Nichols was not able to do on a consistent level for the previous 3.5 quarters. So what happens after the 4th play when he's eligible to come back? Matt Nichols comes back. The Winnipeg faithful boo him. Matt Nichols takes to Twitter. Well, actually not to Twitter. It was a comment through the Bombers website saying that, well, I've given up my all to the city, to this organization, to the fans. I thought that it was not called for. So I guess the question here is this kind of like hurt feelings by professional quarterbacks, or is this kind of like how we always want it, where professional athletes are telling it like it is, as opposed to the cliche answers that we've come to know and love?
Well, I think there are instances where it is little disrespect from the fans. I believe fandom has kind of, with social media, taken this step towards entitlement isn't the right word, but we're the fans. You can't criticize us. We're the fans. Without us, you don't exist. To a point, well, for the majority, that point does exist. Without fans, you've got nobody watching the games. But we've really bought into that mentality now, it seems. And especially with social media, is not only am I a fan now, I'm a fan with a voice. And because I'm a fan, you have to respect everything I say and do, because I have an opinion, and you have to respect that because I have an opinion. And it's like, yes, you do have an opinion, but you have to be prepared for that opinion to be questioned. If you're going to share it on something like social media, you need to be prepared for someone to counterpoint your opinion, because that is also allowed, people to disagree with you. And then it filters into the stands. And this has been something that has existed forever. I shouldn't put it all on just social media. I remember the days before social media, and you would talk to people, be at games, and I pay money. I can do whatever I want because I bought this seat. I paid for this seat, so I'm entitled to do anything I want at a football game. And that's not true. You bought a ticket, and if you flip that ticket over, you will read there that it says you have purchased your way to the game, but you must abide by all the rules of, morality, ethics, and just to be a good fan. And I've taken it to a bit of the extreme of what we're talking about, but it was still a case of the fans being in Montreal, and I thought that was extremely disrespectful to Vernon Adams. He was playing a good football game. To say that the loss was on him would have been completely wrong. He played a very good football game, and on a better team, he might have actually won that football game. And then on top of it, after having a display like that and chant for Johnny Manziel, it's a little disrespectful in my book. Now, this is where the argument will get convoluted and people will muddy the water. Montreal needs to get someone like Johnny Manziel to put butts in the seats, and this is a publicity move, and all the fans are doing is wanting what the team gives them. That is great, but to chant for him in a football game with your quarterbacks doing well, I thought it was a little nearsighted by fans to do something to that extent. Now, for Vernon Adams to get in front of a camera and start complaining about it, that could be something different. You could say Vernon Adams should be in a position where he can have a thicker skin. He should understand what Johnny Manziel is there for. This isn't Vernon Adams' team. He has not led this team through the trenches year after year, game after game. He hasn't really been there long enough either to turn around and make those comments either. The Alouettes fans are desperate for something to give them excitement at Molson Stadium. So this one, I'm kind of arguing both sides because I can see both sides. Winnipeg's was just asinine and just ridiculous by the fans. And if the only thing the fans in Winnipeg should be doing is heading to Twitter to apologize for what happened to Matt Nichols, because that franchise was a joke before he showed up. I don't care if they were trending up. I don't care if there was highlights in Winnipeg. That franchise was not a fun team to watch. They were on nobody's radar, and nobody cared about the Winnipeg Blue Bombers before Matt Nichols showed up. And then suddenly he started to win, and suddenly people started to notice the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. And then people started to root for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, and people started to think, wow, could the end be near of the drought for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers? And he is right. For what the face he's put on that franchise in the last couple of years since he showed up has been fantastic. And if you were upset that your quarterback was going back into a game where it was going to be a losing situation, and if you thought there was going to be a risk to his health, you can't boo. I don't even care what your intentions was. The perception of what you were doing was so bad and so horrible to Matt Nichols. You can't do it. When I was in radio, we had a saying, perception is reality. It doesn't matter what your intentions were. If you were trying to tell the organization you were angry that Matt Nichols was going back in, it doesn't matter, because what was perceived was you booing Matt Nichols. Perception is reality. Your intentions are irrelevant. When I turned on my mic in radio, whatever my intention was for what a joke I made or what I said about an artist or what I said about the community, my intent was irrelevant. It's the perception of what I said to the listener that is going to count. And in this, the perception of what they did with Matt Nichols going back in the football game was wrong. And Matt Nichols was in the right to get in front of that camera and tell the Winnipeg Blue Bombers fans what he thought.
Perception is reality. I think we found the new title for our show today. That's our title for episode 355. Hey, listen, I know, I completely understand. As long as the fans don't make it personal on Twitter, and we know that there are a lot of them, as long as they don't get onto the field and make themselves known, I'm talking about streakers or possible people that are, attack players. We've seen that in Winnipeg before. I think booing is okay. You're showing the organization, you're showing the players that you're not happy. Now, again, I'm not going to speak for the other 27,000 people in attendance, but I can understand, hey, you know what? We were actually moving the ball quite nicely with Chris Trevler. It was already, the game was already done, but we were moving the ball. There was no need to put in Matt Nichols, who had just gotten level like three plays before that. And you know what? I'm not anti Matt Nichols in this situation, because I am completely on his side. Where, I mean, we always argue that we don't want these cliches. We want these players to, speak from the bottom of their heart to how they feel, whether it's towards the officials, towards the game, towards their opponents, to their team. And this is what, and it's twice this year we've had it in the span of 3 weeks by Vernon Adams and Matt Nichols. And bravo to those guys who crossed the line, so to speak. I don't blame them, but at the same time, you have to understand that this, I mean, yeah, the fans do pay your salary indirectly, and as long as they're not making it personal, despite what you say with the perception is reality, they are not obligated to do so, but they are well within their right to do so. As long as the booing is not followed with personal attacks, by all means, boo your own team. And a lot of people will say, well, I'm not going to boo my team. I would never boo my team. Well, if you go into a restaurant, and I know this is, you're going to roll your eyes here, Tony, but if you go into a restaurant, you're not going to boo. But if you ordered a medium well steak or a medium or a well done steak, and they send you a medium rare or a rare steak, are you going to eat it? Are you going to be okay? Are you going to be satisfied with that? No, you're going to tell the waiter or the waitress or the manager, say, hey, listen, I don't want to pay for this. I ordered a well done steak and I got a rare. This is completely opposite of what I wanted. Right? You go into a stadium with the expectation that your team that you paid money for is actually going to put it all on the line, and when they pull up with that effort, yeah, you're going to boo. And that's par for sports. You're going to see that in Major League Baseball, the NHL, Major League Soccer, the NFL, or in the CFL. It's par for the course. So as much as I am for Vernon Adams and Matt Nichols, I just think that maybe sometimes that maybe you need to pick your battles. You had mentioned earlier about the third down hot take regarding to the Toronto Argonauts. Duron Carter, who has been a free agent for 2 weeks, is rumored to be landing in Toronto. So I guess with that being said, we go back to the first down take. Does Duron Carter, if he does land in Toronto, does that make Toronto contenders? And I hate to ask the same question twice, but now that we're adding this ingredient, does this make the Toronto Argonauts the beast of the East?
Oh, I don't think it makes them the beast of the East. I think, like you said, you need to be a 500 club. If you can be better than that, that's a real feather in your cap. The Argonauts have already beaten Ottawa once this year. And if McLeod Bethel-Thompson is playing as well as we think he is, and he's going to do it for the second half of the season now, that's a nice weapon to have in your arsenal. He's already been able to prove he can find receivers in the open if he has to, which could hopefully establish a running game, which Anthony Coombs right now seems like he wants to give the Toronto Argonauts a chance to move the ball on the ground. There's no way, at the very minimum of your argument, there is no way you can say Duron Carter does not make you a better football team. That is an outright lie. There is no way you add Duron Carter onto a team's offense and say, well, they're not as good as they were today. That's ridiculous. I don't care what you think of him personally, of Duron Carter. He's good at football. This is a fact. You can argue his character, which I think is one of the terms that sports fans use the most incorrect these days, is character and class. It's getting to the point where I'm soon going to start ranting nonstop about how fans have no idea how to use the term character or class properly when it comes to sports. But no matter what you think of Duron Carter as a person, I think he's handled the whole thing properly. But because it's been 2 weeks he's signed, obviously every team's afraid of him. He's a piece of garbage. He's a horrible human being. He eats kittens. He hates your family. He hates everything you love. He's a horrible person, and that's why it's 2 weeks since he's been signed, because he hates everything and everyone hates him. That is the fact about Duron Carter. But it still doesn't change a football thing that if you put Duron Carter in your receiving core, he's going to make catches. You're probably going to get touchdowns. So are they the favorite to win the East? I'm going to say no, because Ottawa's playing good football. Does it make them a better football team and trouble for the Tiger Cats and the Red Blacks? Then yes.
Let's get that trending. Duron Carter eats kittens.
Yeah. Have you ever seen him not eating a kitten? Well, then he probably does, because I've never not seen him do it. Has anyone offered him a kitten and see if he eats it? He must. That's why you don't see people offering him kittens, just like they don't offer him contracts. There was 4 teams in on him. Now there's only one. Clearly, He's the problem.
Well, that's why the tiger cats are not in, right? Because
Exactly. He'll eat them. He'll eat the baby kittens. Unless I see proof of someone handing him a kitten and him not eating it, Duron Carter eats kittens.
So, anybody that's listening to this podcast right now, if you could quickly Photoshop a picture of Duron Carter with a cat.
A big bowl of kittens. Eating kittenos. Hashtag Duron Carter eats kittens.
Perception is reality.
Because we have to judge Duron Carter on all the bad things we do in his life. That's how people should be judged. I think I would love to be judged. What a great way to judge people on the worst they're at. At the worst moment of their lives, that's when we should judge people. Because that's what we like doing with Duron Carter.
Oh, man. You know what? I really hope. I mean, we saw Duron Carter. I don't believe he was with Mark Trestman. I think Trestman bolted to the NFL before Carter was with the Alouettes. I might be mistaken. But he's a Jim Pop guy. And I think that maybe Jim Pop will be able to, to ream him in, right? Just to make sure that he's not acting wildly, just like and to be honest, he was never like that in Saskatchewan. Yeah, he took some stupid penalties, but the Duron Carter that we knew in Montreal didn't really appear in Saskatchewan, well, as far as we know of. But now he's with a familiar environment. He's got Jim Pop, S.J. Green, Anthony Calvillo. If these guys weren't able to make him work in Montreal 2 years ago, chances are he's probably not going to be able to make it work this year. So it's with that being said, yeah, if he does sign, he does make your team a little bit better. But there's still that internal history that they have with Duron Carter. And I don't, his third team in 6 years. And we know his college history and the fact that his dad had some history, back in the NFL in his college days. That maybe this is a wake-up call for him. But if not, this might be like a nail in the coffin for the Toronto Argonauts. And I'm not saying that he's a cancer, and I'm not going to label his character, but there's something to be said about a guy who can't last on a team more than a year and a half at each team, right? Because he was released halfway through his second year it was his first year coming back. But then he lasted a year and a half in Saskatchewan. For all accounts, everybody in Saskatchewan loved him. But then there's that history in this first part in Montreal, and everybody knew he was a character. And it just boggles the mind that this talent is almost wasted. And I think in Toronto, he could be the difference maker. I just think that there's history there's left to be said here in regards to Duron Carter. Well, that'll do it for our 3-down hot takes. We forgot to mention the shameless plug brought to you by cgiant.ca. Use the promo code ROUGE to get yourself discounts to any sporting or any kind of entertainment venue across Canada. Let's get into our magnificent bastard. Tony, you were hosting your family, so you weren't able to watch.
No, I didn't see any games playing host to my mom, and
all right, so
missed it all.
I'm going to take your spot.
Oh my God! #1. Seinfeld, you magnificent bastard!
Now, we talked about the whole new hashtag diversity is strength, hashtag rep your roots and whatnot. Last week, this week, it's a part of the CFL campaign to bring all the CFL fans closer together, to unite us, every walk of life, to unite us as one. You might cheer for each 9 different teams or what have you, but the common denominator is that we are all CFL fans. And hopefully. Now, there are a couple of idiots on Twitter that took to Twitter to certain teams mentioning this hashtag. Case in point, Edmonton posted a picture. They had a pride flag at the corner of Commonwealth. Someone decided to reply back with, how can I unlike this? How can I unlove this? So whoever is working the Edmonton Eskimos social media account said, you could click the unfollow, hashtag diversity is strength. Fast forward to the game before Calgary and the Saskatchewan Roughriders. I can't remember what the tweet was, but someone brought in, why can't we just talk about football instead of this liberal mumbo jumbo? This is horse crap. Well, he used a little bit more derogatory terms. And then the Saskatchewan Roughriders quoted that tweet saying, hashtag blocked, hashtag SIA, hashtag diversity is strength. So there wasn't any one player, but to the guys or girls who handle the social media accounts of the Edmonton Eskimos and the Saskatchewan Roughriders, you magnificent bastards. Or bitches. I don't know how it works if it's a woman. So whoever runs that, kudos on you. You get a standing applause from me. All right, as we move on, before we get to our Week 11 predictions, Tony, we reached into another mystery deck. What do you got for me?
Obviously, it was very easy. Everybody that guessed at it got it right away. So I think the bar is pretty low because it is clearly an easy mystery deck today.
It's Milt Stegall, isn't it?
It's not Milt Stegall.
Oh.
But I believe it's another Renegade. We're going back to the Renegade pile. I don't know why I'm hooked on
the
Renegades. It seems like maybe they can be obscure enough. So on the back of this player's card reads 1995 Baltimore, 96 Montreal, 97 and 98 did not play, 99 to 2001 Edmonton, 2002 Ottawa Red Blacks.
And there's no hint as far as stats or position.
Well, won a Grey Cup with Baltimore in 95, but if they played for Baltimore in 95, that's pretty much just a gimme. Doubled his previous best in passing yardage in 2002.
Yeah, there's the key hint there. It's Dan Crowley.
That's exactly who it is.
Ah,
super easy card today.
All right.
According to the fans and you.
I'll just sit back, lean back, and enjoy and bask in my own glory there.
I'm not going to say I didn't think it was going to be more difficult than that, but clearly everyone else is smarter at this game than I am. So,
well, I mean, if you have to go to the to the Renegade deck, you just got to get away from that. How about
I got to move away from the Renegades.
How about some BC Lions or some Calgary Stampeders, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's get into our Week 11 predictions before we get the show off the trail here. Thursday Night Football returns after a week hiatus. The Edmonton Eskimos are in Hamilton to face the Tiger Cats, coming off the bye, coming off a 1-1 of their last two, off the close loss against the Winnipeg Blue Bombers 2 weeks ago. Tony, where do you see this one going?
First off, I never realized I wanted Friday or Thursday Night Football so much as when I turned on my TV on last Thursday and there was no football on.
I know, eh?
And that's just like, oh my God, this has clearly become part of my routine, because when I turned that on and I just assumed there was a football game on. I didn't check the schedule, but it was Thursday night. There has to be a football game on. So good job to the Canadian Football League. They've clearly branded it into my brain, at least, that there needs to be football on a Thursday night. Now going to this football game, the biggest interest for me is just kind of see what kind of Hamilton Tiger Cats team we get against the Edmonton Eskimos, because I still think the Edmonton Eskimos are somewhat vulnerable. They do have a very good offense. They are a very good football team. I don't want to take anything away. Mike Briley has never lost a football game ever, has never had an incomplete pass, and every time he throws it to the end zone, it's a touchdown. He is hands down the greatest football player that has ever come to the Canadian Football League, and he doesn't have a fault. It is amazing to see a football player who does not have a single fault in his game. Even his shoelaces are tied perfectly. So it is a big challenge for the Tiger Cats right now to go up against a football player who has never thrown an incomplete pass in his entire life, going back to Pee Wee football. So the Tiger Cats are going to have to take that into consideration when playing somebody like that. But at the end of the day, my joking aside, I think the Edmonton Eskimos are a better football team all around. Now, playing on the road or in Tim Hortons Field. I'm not sure how that is going to affect them. Edmonton, they'll battle their injuries. They'll have their weaknesses at certain positions, but overall they look as good as their record is, and maybe even a little bit better than what it shows, because they do have a few blemishes on their record, like the Toronto game, but that was end zones. That had nothing to do with Mike Riley or the Eskimos' ability to play football. That was end zones problem. That was all on bad end zones in Toronto when they lost that football game. But with a Tiger Cats team that is starting to now ask themselves, what kind of football team are we here, guys? Like, I remember when the season started, I would listen to, my only real sports show I get to listen to on a regular basis is the one out of Calgary, and they were all picking Ottawa as the best team in the East. Ottawa, we expect lots from Ottawa. Tiger Cats, still not sure what they are, but when the season started, I thought, no, I think you guys are wrong. The Tiger Cats are, I think, the better all-around football team here, and the Red Blacks are not. But I guess over the last couple of weeks, I find myself agreeing with them now that maybe the Tiger Cats aren't packing what we thought they were when the season started. I'm guilty of maybe wanting Jeremiah Mazzoli and the Tiger Cats to continue how they finished 2017, but right now they seem to have that struggle, and something just can't get them over the hump. And I don't think the Edmonton Eskimos are kind of a team where you get over something like that. It might be one of those, this is a good win for the Tiger Cats kind of team if they can pull it off, or this is a challenge, they can prove something by beating this Eskimos team. But even if the Tiger Cats do win, I don't think they're sending a message or proving anything. I think they just might be able to catch Edmonton on an off night because Edmonton's looked so well. But right now I'm going to take the Edmonton Eskimos to win 38-21.
It's funny how, a few weeks ago we were talking, I think it was Hamilton and Ottawa, and it was like a potential first place matchup. And Ottawa took that without scoring a touchdown. And now we fast forward, Hamilton's in third place, tied for second with the Toronto Argonauts, and only 4 points up on the Montreal Alouettes. Right? We talk about perception as reality. We believe that Hamilton's a way better team than Montreal. We perceive that they're even a better team than Toronto. But reality is, sometimes the numbers don't lie. You can put up these fancy stats and whatnot, but it means nothing if you can't get the W. And I think right now, when you're comparing the two quarterbacks in this game, Jeremiah Mazzoli versus Mike Riley, game on the line, let's say it's a close game, which I believe it would be, even if it is at home for Hamilton. Who would you want with the ball in their hands on the final drive, game-winning field goal, game-winning touchdown? I know 9 out of 10 would say Mike Riley, the 10th being June Jones, because he believes everybody in Hamilton is going to be the best ever. But that's what it is. Jeremiah Mazzoli, he's with the ball in his hands, and it's the ultimate team sport. But with the ball in his hands, when the game on the line, he has never been able. I should never, but the chances of him being able to come out victorious are slim to none. I don't think Edmonton's the kind of team that you could beat up on them early and get that big lead, because if that's the case, then I think Hamilton may be able to stave them off. But that's the point. Hamilton's a team where they really need to build that big lead, because if they don't, they're in a dogfight. And if you're in a dogfight with the Edmonton Eskimos, who are just could go tit for tat, touchdown after touchdown, and just kill you through the air, well, then you've already lost if you're getting into that kind of shootout. So I'm going to take the Edmonton Eskimos in this one, and I think my final score is going to be 31-25. Next game is a Friday night football. By the way, I looked at the schedule. This Thursday's game is the final Thursday game of this year. Yeah. Every week will now start on Friday. Of course, next week, the Labor Day Classic. And then, of course, the rematch after that. Every week will start on a Friday. So, RIP Thursday Night Football. # long live the night. Toronto Argonauts try to extend their first winning streak in quite some time to 3 as they go into McGill Stadium facing Anthony Pipkin. And I got to tell you, I was really rooting for the Montreal Alouettes last week. And it's not because my team's in the West and it hurts. It's just because it's a team that looks hapless in Montreal. This young quarterback making his first start, has a couple bad throws, but the good throws that he had, they were dropped. And you felt bad for the guy. You felt bad for this guy because he wasn't put in a good position to win, and he still did as much, and it still was in reach. And it's unfortunate. It was against the Edmonton Eskimos. I think any other team, maybe, obviously notwithstanding Saskatchewan and Calgary, I think any other team, they might have actually pulled out the win, but alas, they're still 1-8. Again, they're at home. He's got that extra gaming experience, but now Toronto's got film. And as much as I really am rooting for Montreal in this one, you could tell in the body language that they just don't, it seems that they don't give a damn. And Toronto, they've got all the confidence, no matter how they're winning, they're winning. Mark Trestman has this team well prepared, and I'm convinced that maybe Toronto is going to maybe blow Montreal out of the water here. I think this is going to be a 36-20 victory for the Toronto Argonauts. As we go into Saturday, and the first half of the doubleheader, the Winnipeg Blue Bombers go into McMahon Stadium to face the Calgary Stampeders, who are, let's just say they're in a crappy mood because one of their best fans did not have their Stampeders mug. You want to come clean about that, Tony?
Yeah, sure. And I don't want to review. I don't want to do the Toronto Montreal game either. So I'll just move on here. Okay. That's fine. Skipping right by me. Whatever. I'll just quickly. Toronto wins there. Don't worry. I won't talk about that. Clearly, there's some reason you do not want me to cover the Toronto Montreal game. So I'm still going to put in a score. So you're completely right by me.
I'm not used to starting out the game. I just went to the next game. All right. Now
either way,
put the spotlight on you.
No, it's already passed. I'll take it. It's late. I made my joke, but no. The other joke you're alluding to is I got last time I was at the stamp store, bought a Alex Singleton jersey mug. I love these things. You probably have them at your store too for the Bombers, but it's an Alex Singleton jersey mug, and I only have a coffee out of it on Stampeders game days, and that's week 1 this week. Whatever day the Stamps play, I have a coffee in the morning out of that mug. Then it goes back into the cupboard after being washed, and then I don't drink coffee out of that at all, which is funny because when my mom was here and her husband Hector was going to have a coffee, and I was like, you can't touch that mug. You're not drinking coffee out of the mug. I'm like, I don't want to be a dink, but that is for game day. And then on Monday morning, I was getting ready for work, and the Stamps mug was in. I'm like, why is this available to me? And I'm like, son of a bitch. I didn't use it. So that's on me, Stampeders fans. I jinxed the whole thing tonight. And I'm pretty superstitious, I have to admit. So if you think superstitions are stupid, then I am wicked stupid, because some superstitions I just can't get over. I don't know what it is, no matter how much I try. But moving on to the football game anyways, this is a really good football game for the Stampeders to get back into the groove against, because Winnipeg is a good football team, and you want to get back in there and be forced to play your best football again. Something a little bit lighter would be nice. You probably come away with the win, but a team like Winnipeg isn't going to let down. They're not going to give you a free pass. They're not going to give you another win to get you back on track. Now, I don't think the Calgary Stampeders are upset at all. I think they were upset after the initial loss, but they're 7-1. They're not going to go back and say, oh God, like we had a chance to really pull away in the West, but you're 7-1. You're pulling away in the West. So I don't think that was a wake-up call. I think they were pissed after the game, but they know they have a job to do, and at the end of the day, their goal is the Grey Cup. That is all Calgary needs to do this year, is win the Grey Cup, not beat Edmonton to prove they're contenders or beat Saskatchewan to prove that they can face adversity and win on the road. They don't need those wins. They just need to keep going and prove they can do it at the end of the season and win that Grey Cup. Winnipeg's a good team. They're a good enough team, I think, to really push the Stampeders, and it feels like my memory brings up close games against the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, and they know how to play Calgary in their own barn. It's never really a walk for them, and to be honest, Calgary really doesn't win in a lot of walks. There's been a game here and there that we can all think of off the top of our head, hanging 50 on the Tiger Cats last season. But for the most part, they don't. It feels like they don't go in and crush. The score at the end of the day might be a few late touchdowns and looks a little flattering, but the Stampeders don't destroy anyone. I don't see the Stampeders dominating the Winnipeg Blue Bombers wire to wire. What they need to do is stop the offensive touchdowns. Like, seriously, the Stampeders gave up one offensive touchdown to the Saskatchewan Roughriders last week. I wish I love Matt Dunnigan, but I wish I could have told him how stupid his comment was about how Saskatchewan looked like a better team under Zach Collaros, and Zach Collaros was a difference in the game. Like, he didn't have any numbers that were even comparable. Well, they were comparable to Bo Levi Mitchell, but still less. He had less yards. His completions to attempt ratio was almost the same with Bo Levi Mitchell's. He had no touchdowns. He had nothing. There was nothing to prove that he had any impact on that game whatsoever. And the Stampeders killed themselves on special teams turnovers and on a pick six. That's what Calgary needs to get out of their game right now. And I don't even remember them giving up too many opportunities on special teams. The Calgary Stampeders need to work on this. That defense doesn't give up touchdowns. It's not what they're doing, and Winnipeg can't go in there thinking, well, you know what, let's get the offense to do what we do and we'll just stop Bo Levi Mitchell, because it's quite the opposite. Bo Levi Mitchell, in some cases this year, will stop himself. You just got to get some balls into the damn end zone and stop settling for field goals. That's what Winnipeg needs to do. Listen, if Bo starts to go off the rails, he'll eliminate the Stampeders on his own. But let's get some balls in the end zone ourselves on our offense and not trust Bo Levi Mitchell to screw it up on the team this week. And that's what Winnipeg's big challenge is going to be. Having said that, I can see a bounce back game for the Stampeders because they are at home, and it is still the Calgary Stampeders and Winnipeg right now. How much confidence does Matt Nichols have in himself right now going in? If we're going to nitpick confidence, is he the guy that's going to blow off what happened? He went in front of the media and aired out his beef on the fans. Is he over it? Is it something that doesn't matter because he doesn't have to worry about it being an issue in Calgary? How emotional is he still about that? This is a guy that believes he's given everything and felt rather slighted. What does he have for a game as big as the Stampeders? I'm going to take Calgary in this one, 26-17.
You throw out stats here from the last game. Bo Levi Mitchell, 22 for 36, 61%, 275 yards, 4 touchdowns, 1 interception, of course, was a pick six. Zach Collaros, 25 for 34, 73.5%, 270 yards, no interceptions, no touchdowns. Yeah, you could definitely back up the argument saying that, yeah, Zach Collaros, yeah, they moved the ball quite consistently, but if your last touchdown, if your only offensive touchdown happened in the latter stages of the game and you win by 13, chances are it was more your defense or special teams that did the opponent as opposed to your offense.
And I quickly want to interrupt you because this was something I wanted to bring up specifically on the show, and it was the one time where I just had to shake my head at what I believe between the two guys that were doing this broadcast, it was Matt Dunnigan, and my jaw was just open about how his point for Zach Collaros being such a great impact on the Riders is that he kept getting them into that field goal position. In what world do you want your quarterback to get you in field goal position the whole game? How does that 2 and 2 aren't equaling 4 on this one? Did he just say Zach Collaros was a success because he kept putting their offense, their special teams, in field goal positions? No, put him in the end zone, and then I will believe that he was making an impact. But to try and fluff up every time a drive stalled, they settled for field goals. Oh, right, because that's what every fan dreams. That's what you look for. When you're looking for a quarterback, can he leave us in field goal position? That's what we really want. Let's make sure when we're evaluating quarterbacks, that way when his drives fail, he's in field goal position. No, I don't buy that at all.
Mm-hmm. No, I can definitely understand that. Hey, so let's get back to the topic at hand here, the Winnipeg Blue Bombers in Calgary here. I think the key focus here is Winnipeg's offense, because save for last week, because actually the last couple of weeks, because Winnipeg's offense really hasn't been consistent, and I really think that Winnipeg is just missing that one big-time receiver. They have Darvin Adams, they're getting Weston Dressler back, they've got Nick Dembski, Andrew Harris, but it seems to be the opponents stop Andrew Harris, and you stop the Winnipeg Blue Bombers offense. The Bombers at this time still are the top offense as far as yards as well as points per game. So there's that going. But Calgary's defense is just dynamite. Like, you cannot get any better than the numbers that Calgary's defense. Saskatchewan's a close second, but you can't come close to what Calgary's been able to do. And add to the fact, I don't see Winnipeg hasn't lost 2 in a row this year, but I don't think Calgary's lost 2 in a row in like forever, right? Granted, I think actually last year they lost 3 in a row, but at that point the season was already done, right? They had already clinched first, so there wasn't anything for them to win. Now that they're fending off the Edmonton Eskimos, I guess as well as the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, this team's mentally prepared. I think they're going to be in a bitter mood. I think it's going to be a close game, but I can't see how Winnipeg is going to score more than 20 against this Calgary defense. I'm going to say it's going to be 28-18. All right, as we move on to the second half of that doubleheader, Tony, 2 teams are undefeated at home: the Calgary Stampeders and the BC Lions. The BC Lions are going to put up their 3-0 home record as they play the Saskatchewan Roughriders. Where do you see this one going?
Gosh, this one I struggled with. Because I'm a guy that likes statistics like this, and not because I'm an analytics guy. I always think things like these can go so long and then they come to an end. Winning streaks at home, winning streaks in general. It's so weird. How long can BC keep flip-flopping from loss on the road, win at home, loss on the road, win at home? Now, they came so close to pulling off that win on the road last week, but they found a way to lose it. Does this now mean it goes back to BC and they find a way to win it? Is Zach Collaros going to prove me wrong and go into BC and show that I am better than what Saskatchewan had in the past? Now, I will understand fans are going to say BC's a lot different than Calgary. To judge Zach Collaros on how he plays against Calgary is going to be a lot different than BC. And, of course, I'm definitely going to see Zach Collaros, in theory, should do much better against the BC Lions than he does against the Calgary Stampeders defense. I can't have my cake and eat it too. If I'm going to claim Calgary's the best defense in the league, it's going to affect Zach Collaros' ability to put up statistics. So I do expect to see those statistics. It's just how much can he bring to the Saskatchewan Roughriders now? Is he going to get to the end zone 2 or 3 times now versus a defense that's a lot more susceptible to big plays, to sneak plays, to just general good quarterbacking that the Calgary Stampeders don't give up? With that big win as well, Saskatchewan's going to be feeling good. You knocked the top of the guys off the pedestal. The Calgary Stampeders didn't need to win that football game, but this is a big feather in the hat to the Saskatchewan Roughriders to be saying, okay, we have a blemish on our record, which was the Montreal Alouettes, but now we've come back and proven with our top guy there, we can do it. Our defense was absolutely brilliant against the Stampeders. I wish that's where all the focus after the game had gone, on how good Saskatchewan's defense was, because Charleston Hughes got into Bo Levi Mitchell's head and he forced the mistakes. The defense was very good. Special teams got the turnover. Anytime you get a special teams touchdown, chances are you're in a very good position. If they can force that same stuff against BC, they can break BC Lions streaks at home. Maybe that's going to be Saskatchewan Roughriders' thing this year, breaking up streaks. They broke up Montreal's losing streak. They break up Calgary's winning streak. Then maybe they break up BC's home winning streak. Right now, though, I am going to take the BC Lions to continue being strong at home. Maybe not the most beautiful win or convincing, but 17-10, I'll take them over the Riders.
Yeah, I think I'm I've been back and forth when I went through this, and I wrote down on my notes here. It's like, at this point, you like Saskatchewan's defense, but you really don't like their offense. You love BC's offense, but you don't like their defense. And BC's interior defensive line is really susceptible to the run. Saskatchewan's been able to get some kind of running game in the last couple of weeks. I mean, it's not dangerous, but it's formidable. And I think that maybe they'll be able to use that to maybe get the air attack under control, because BC secondary, save for TJ Lee, who has actually been beasting it out there this year, save for TJ Lee, that defense up the middle, you just obviously without Solomon Elamimian in that patrolling that middle linebacker position, it's going to be a very, very different defense. But you just look at what BC's offense is able to do against Saskatchewan's defense, and I don't think it's really going to be that much. I think their run defense, Saskatchewan I'm referring to, is, I don't have the stats here, but I imagine they're top 3 in the league. Travis Lulay, he's a seasoned vet. I don't think he's going to toss up a lot of air balls out to the sides or sidelines to get him picked off. But I think they're going to be limited. I think Travis Lulay will actually have a couple of touchdowns, throw for a couple 100 yards. But I think Saskatchewan's going to be able to contain them for the most part. And for whatever reason, BC's offense has really had the unfamiliar territory of bad clock management, right?
Sorry, what did you say there? What did you just say there?
They have I can't even remember what I actually said.
Okay,
but
sorry.
They've had a history of bad clock management, and it just seems where they have 10 seconds to get off 2 plays, where they take the entire 10 seconds just for 1 play. And I think for a team like that, you need to play all 60 minutes, whether it's even 2 plays in the final 10 seconds to get that done. And as we all despair against Chris Jones and how he outcoaches himself sometimes the other team is going to outcoach themselves, to your benefit. And I think Saskatchewan's going to come out on the victory on this side. It's going to be a low-scoring affair, and I think they're going to come out on top 21-18. Well, that'll do it for episode 355 of the Rouge Radio podcast. You can follow us on Twitter at Rouge Radio, myself at Rouge Daltz, Tony at Tony Rouge Radio, and of course you can send us an email. I tell you what, next week we're going to read all your emails because we got a lot, right? So
can we sneak one in? There's got to be one that stands out. Like every week we bring up emails and forget, so let's prove to the people we actually will get to their emails. There's got to be one handy. Do you have one handy?
Darlene from Yorkton calls me out as a Bomber fan and says, do you think that this will be Weston Dressler's final year in a Bomber uniform? To be honest, Darlene, I think this will be Dressler's final year as a player. I think in the past he has insinuated that this will be his final contract. I think at his age, the fact that he cannot play an entire 18 games for his entire tenure as a Winnipeg Blue Bomber should go without saying that I think this will be his last game. And to be honest with you, I thought with the problems at receiver that Winnipeg has had, I thought that maybe they should, throw a Hail Mary and try to sign guys like Bakari Grant or Duron Carter. And if that was the case, I think that might have opened the door for Weston Dressler to be released. So that's my thought. We'll get to a lot more next week. Tony, any final thoughts?
Oh, what was my final thought? Yes, it was mostly just to say thank you for the first half of the CFL season. It's pretty tricky now with 21 weeks. We can't actually say this is the halfway point of the season, but believe it or not, 21 weeks, week number 11 now, we'll call that halfway through the season. And after a slow start, boy, I knew this league would not let me down. Some spectacular finishes. Thank you to the Toronto Argonauts for some one of the best finishes in the first half of the regular season against the Red Blacks. And let's hope the second half of the season is just as fun.
I echo my sentiments. All right, to end the show, we've got another dad joke. Tony, are you ready?
Let's do it.
All right, I'm having a hard time deciding whether I should throw away my old pillow. I think I'll sleep on it. All right, for Tony, I'm Daltz. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next week.
Thanks for listening. Find more great shows like this at CF Pod Network on Twitter.